This is the Mazda MX-5. It's all about fun. It's tiny. It's got a convertible roof. There's two different roof options, and there's heaps of different choices you can make if you are looking at one of these cars. So is it worth your money for something so small and so compromised? We'll get to that in this review. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Let's go take a look, shall we? Despite being one of the smallest cars on sale in Australia, there is a bunch of different versions of the MX-5 available here. There's 6 different choices in this range. 3 of them come with the soft top, and 3 are the RF model like this one, which must mean roofed fully. It's the hard top version. It's not quite the same sort of experience because there's less wind sort of rushing around you in the car, but you might love that about it. Look, I won't go through every single detail or nuance of the spec levels here because it would just take too long, but just know that all versions come with great stuff like LED lights, there's 17-inch alloy wheels, different wheel designs across the grades, you get better brakes if you spend more money, and you also get different elements to the interior trim too, but all versions come with an 8.8-inch touchscreen media system, which has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto and a rotary dial as well to control things. It's a pretty nice cabin, but hey, it's pretty tiny as well, and so is the boot. We'll get to that shortly. And I just want to also call out that there are some notable omissions from the standard spec list for this car. Things like adaptive cruise control, you can't get it on any version of this car, so for the day-to-day commute, it might not make as much sense as it could. And also, you don't get a digital speedo, which is really, really silly, I reckon, because even though it's not the fastest convertible out there, you might want to watch your speed in some instances. All right. Let's talk about some alternatives to it. Are there any? There are no natural rivals to this car. In terms of the size, in terms of the price, nothing really competes with it. But hey, if you are looking for a budget-friendly convertible, like if your budget stretches to almost double the cost of the MX-5, you could go and have a look at the new generation Ford Mustang convertible, but it's like $90,000. It's a lot of money for a Mustang. And then there's also the likes of the BMW Z4, but you'll be pushing over 100K for something like that. So like this thing sort of sits in its own section of the market, but if having a roof open above you is not your primary consideration, if you're just after a compact sporty car, there are some options that you might want to consider. Firstly, the Toyota GR86 and also the Subaru BRZ. Those two are essentially twins under the skin, and twins above the skin in some instances, and they do look and drive very, very similarly, but they're also a bit different in their own ways. And I actually think that they're brilliant, both of them, and they have 4-seat practicality as well. I mean, the back seats aren't necessarily super comfortable, but you've got a bigger boot and you can fit child seats in it if that matters to you. So what do you think? Tell me what you reckon in the comments. This is a tiny, tiny little car. It's about 4 meters in length, and just have a look at how long the wheelbase is compared to the overall length of this vehicle. That gives it a nice planted feel on the road despite being so small. This one has the retractable roof, and yes, that means that it's not the full open roof experience, but it folds away in there electronically, and that's kind of neat. All right, let's check out the boot space. You can see for yourself. It's tiny, and it is a little bit smaller if you choose the RF model, the one with a hard top as opposed to the soft top. But honestly, for a couple, you could fit a suitcase and maybe a couple of soft bags on top, and that's about it. There is no spare tire. You do get a tire repair kit. There's not much in the way of other amenities in the boot either, but hey, it's a tiny little car. You should be okay with a tiny little boot. The interior of the MX-5 is tiny, essentially. It is a really small space in here. For someone my height, 182 centimeters, 6 foot, look, I'm almost touching the roof here. So if you're a big unit, you aren't gonna like it. If you're 6'3", 6'4", or just really broad, it is not necessarily going to be the most comfortable experience for you, but it is a very likable experience in terms of the cabin treatment. Sure, it hasn't changed all that much over the years of this generation ND Miata, but I do like the fact that you are still getting Well, pretty tactile controls, essentially. So you've got dials for your air conditioning. It's manual aircon, as you can see for yourself there. This version does have heated seats, which is nice. And this version is the RF. So that's your roof off button. So let's watch it do that thing. Put it back. Yep, it's opening up behind me there. And that's where it goes. It hides in that little hole there. Which is very, very tidy, actually. There's that Commodore behind me, by the way. And it is a really, really nice cabin in terms of the treatment, the finishes. It doesn't feel luxury, but it does feel sporty and nice. And one thing that I really like about it is that you get this illusion that the metal work is flowing through to the doors here. That's plastic, but it's painted to match the exterior color, and it looks really great, I reckon. You've also got nice, comfortable and supportive sporty seats. They aren't the sportiest seats, but I reckon they're really good as a compromise between comfort and, I guess, controlling your body movement in the car. And look, you don't get bottle holders in the doors, but you do get this adjustable cup holder. So you can put it in there if you want. That's a bit of a hack to put it in there, but otherwise it'll be back here and it might be in your elbow space there. I find that I do bang my elbows a little bit on those. It is a tight cabin, just keep that in mind. There's not a whole lot of storage. There's a little storage tray there. There's another little storage tray under there, which can't even fit a wireless charger, which is disappointing. And there's another little section back here behind the seats, which I guess you could maybe put in a 6-disc stacker if you wish, but it's not really useful for anything else. And there's no glove box either, which is kind of interesting. All that. Now, when it comes to the technology on offer in here, you've got a partly digital instrument display. So this part of the cluster is fully digital. There's a little gear shift indicator that comes up there. Sadly though, as I've repeated multiple times, or will repeat in this review multiple times, there is no digital speedo. So you have to keep an eye on those tiny little increments on the speed analog readout, which I bloody hate. I think it's a real miss. Now, when it comes to the touchscreen, yes, it does have touchscreen capability in some instances. So if you are connected to Apple CarPlay like I am, you can use it as a touchscreen, right? Which is very, very handy, and it's how it should be, because smartphone mirroring is supposed to mirror what it's like to use your smartphone. That's the whole bloody point of it, rather than using the rotary dial, which you used to have to do. Now, you can just use it as a touchscreen. And you can use these hotkeys down here to jump back to menus on the screen. But if you try and use this as a touchscreen, no, it won't do that. So it's kind of interesting that they insist on having you use the rotary dial and buttons when you're not using smartphone mirroring. But hey, I guess they've got the picture that people wanted to be able to touch the screen as a touchscreen, and so they should. So I reckon it's a pretty good cabin space, tight, like I said, but it does make you feel like you are definitely in control of the drive experience, and there's good adjustment for the seat as well, including good base adjustment here. So you can tilt it so your bottom is sitting down in the back of the car. You sort of feel like you're wearing the car as a backwards hat, if that makes any sense at all. That's how it feels to me, and I'm a cool dude who wears my hat backwards. One thing that's never been great about this generation of MX-5 is this massive hump in the driver's footwell. It does get in the way, especially if you've got long legs and you want to relax them. Under the bonnet of the Mazda MX-5 is a 2-litre non-turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine, Skyactiv G as it's called in Mazda land. It's got the choice of a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it's rear-wheel drive. And while it might not have the hugest power and torque outputs, this is a pretty light vehicle. I'm going to put some weights on your screen from the lightest to the heaviest, so you can see for yourself how much you're playing with in terms of the weight, and the power to weight ratio is actually pretty good. It's not the fastest car on the road, but let me tell you, it is certainly a lot of fun. Let me show you, in fact. So I'm going to put the roof up for the in-car stuff to talk about because, well, if you don't have it up, it's less structurally rigid and the windscreen shakes a lot. And that means that the footage that you'll be seeing, because I mount my camera onto the windscreen, will be too shaky. So let's see if it's too shaky with the roof up. I mean, I would much prefer to have the roof down in every instance when I'm driving an MX-5, because it is what this car is about, right? So anyway, let's go for a drive, see what it's like. This one is the RF GT manual, and it's probably one of the sportiest takes on the theme. and it bloody feels it too. It is not necessarily the quickest car, and look, you will be able to have fun within the realms of the legal limits, but it might actually egg you on a little bit more than the previous versions of this car did, because they've retuned it essentially. The chassis has been redone to be more sporty focused, to be more of a day-to-day weapon and also a track special. So if you are planning to go to the track, you can rest assured this car does know what it's doing, and I've driven one on a track before and it's an absolute bloody hoot. In more sedate driving experiences, just like on a Sunday drive or Saturday drive as it is for me now, it is just joyful. It's just a really nice tourer, and if you are going to buy one of these cars as an indulgence, as a car to make you happy about the fact that you've gotten to a certain point in your life, or maybe you just always have had convertible cars and you want something that's tiny, sporty, and pretty good on fuel, which I'll get to soon, yeah, I think this could be a really great car for you. So we're going to go over bumpy street. Now, does that extra stiffness to the body and the suspension translate to an uncomfortable ride? Well, no, I don't think it's uncomfortable. I think it's sporty, and I think it's supposed to feel lumps and bumps in the road surface. It's far more forgivable in something like this than it is in a big Mazda SUV, and I mean, I've had my complaints about that in other Mazda reviews. There's a link in the description if you want to check those out. But look, I think that for the most part, the whole point of this car is that it makes you just have fun. Like, it's just a hoot to drive, and it might not be the fastest, but it doesn't need to be. This 2-litre non-turbocharged petrol engine, it actually sounds a little bit more sporty in this instance than in the past. It almost sounds like it's got supercharger whine going on. Maybe that's the gearbox. This car has had a life on the press vehicle fleet ahead of me getting my hands on it. So look, yeah, it is a hoot. It's a lot of fun, and you don't need to muck around with drive modes or anything like that. It's just sporty as it is, and you will get the tail to flick out if you want to, and it'll do that even more if you play with the traction control stuff, which you can do. I won't do because I'm on a public road, but it does have oversteer moments, which is great fun. In fact, I think this is easier to provoke that sort of moment than in, say, BRZ or GR86, especially if you're buying one of the versions that has the performance pack attached, which I drove the BRZ TS recently, and it wasn't necessarily as fun as I thought it was going to be because it didn't have that loose feeling at the back like earlier versions of the BRZ did. And other elements of the drive experience, I mean, it needs to go and it needs to stop. And with the Brembo brakes on this version, it does. It really does. It pulls up hard and fast, and it's got a beautiful progression to the pedal as well. And just on the gear shift action as well, yes, the clutch does have a bit of weight to it, thankfully, so you can sort of pick how far out you need it to be before you get things to happen at the back end. And I think that it's a really, really lovely car to drive in a mix of scenarios. On your screen now, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figures for the manual and auto versions with the soft top, and also for the RF hardtop models, manual and auto. Yes, the hardtop ones are a bit heavier, so they use a bit more fuel, but it's not like a V8 in terms of its fuel consumption. It's pretty light on the juice. And in fact, over my week of testing, where I've put this thing through the ringer, I've driven it in urban situations, stop-start traffic, commuting, highway, freeway, the usual stuff, and more than one spirited blast. You'll see what I've seen on your screen right now. 7 litres per 100 Ks. That's better than good. For a car like this that can do what this can do and be driven the way I've driven it, I'm really impressed with that. The MX-5 did have a star rating from ANCAP. Up until recently, it just expired, which gives you an idea that this isn't the newest vehicle. It's been through a few facelifts and updates, but it still has a decent amount of safety technology and equipment fitted as standard across the entire range. Things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection. There's cruise control. No model gets adaptive cruise control. You do get lane keeping assistance, speed sign recognition, and also blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert as well. Plus front cross traffic alert, parking sensors, and a reversing camera too. No surround view camera available. And I think the biggest shortfall in terms of safety technology for this car is no digital speedo. It just really should have one. And the fact that you can see your set speed when you set the cruise control, but can't actually see the actual physical speed that you're doing, apart from the analog dial, just a bit annoying, I reckon. And when it comes to airbags, you've got dual front and front side airbags. No curtains for this one because it's too small to have them. Mazda Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty for its model range, including the MX-5, and there's also 5 years of roadside assistance included with that warranty cover. Plus, there's a cap price servicing plan. That means that the service intervals for this car, as you might be able to do the maths, are 12 months and 15,000 kilometres. And on your screen now, you'll see the average maintenance costs over the cap price servicing plan for both the manual versions and the automatic. So yes, the auto is just a little bit cheaper, but it's not as much fun. Full stop. This car knows exactly what it's trying to be. It is unrelentingly just a sports car, and that's bloody brilliant. It's a fantastic little machine. It does have some really serious compromises to consider, and it wouldn't be the ideal day-to-day, everyday commuter car, I don't think. But tell me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. If you commute in your ND Miata or MX-5, I'd love to hear from you, and if you haven't already, please like, subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my reviews, and tell me what you think about this car. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.